Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning for some. My name is Misha, and I am a Korean adoptee, and I'm currently serving my 6th year on the board of directors of Also Known As. I really want to thank everyone for coming to this important event tonight, where we are going to hear the stories of 4 international adoptees who were deported back to the birth countries in their own voices. We all have an origin story, a unique series of events, of people, opportunities, and hardships that make us who we are today. And each story is unique. But for most of us here today, I'm sure we all grew up believing, knowing implicitly that we are citizens of the country we were raised in. I want you all to take a moment to just imagine what goes through your mind if I were to tell you you are not a legal citizen. I want you to imagine, what does your future look like from this moment on? It may be impossible to imagine a life without your citizenship, but that is the reality for thousands of adoptees. Thousands of international adoptees currently live without US citizenship, with some estimates as high as 50,000 to 75,000 adoptees who are not citizens. But no one knows the full number for sure because the federal government does not actually track adoptee citizenship. Until the Child Citizenship Act of 2000 was passed in 2001, legally adopted children from foreign countries were not automatically granted citizenship, and the burden fell on adoptive parents to obtain citizenship for their children. The Child Citizenship Act made it possible for international adoptees who were under the age of 18 at the time it was passed to automatically receive citizenship. But that excluded those over the age of 18, leaving tens of thousands of adoptees with no clear path to citizenship. Those without citizenship are vulnerable to being deported back to their countries of origin, and that is a fate that has already befallen multiple adoptees. The mission of Also Known As is to empower the voice of adult international adoptees to build cultural bridges, transform perceptions of race, and acknowledge the loss of birth country, culture, language, and biological family. Today, we hear from 4 adoptees who have not only had to reckon with the loss of their birth country, but also the loss and betrayal of their adoptive country. With that, it is my honor to introduce our moderator, Dr. Amanda Baden. Dr. Baden received her doctorate in counseling psychology from Michigan State University, and she is currently a professor in the counseling program at Montclair State University in Montclair, New Jersey. Dr. Baden has both personal and professional experience with adoption. She was adopted from Hong Kong and raised in a transracially adoptive family. Her experiences, both personally and professionally, have led her to focus her research and clinical practice on adoption triad members, transracial and international adoption issues, racial and cultural identity, and multicultural counseling competence. Dr. Baden has written extensively on adoption issues, including having created a model of identity for transracial and international adoptees called the Cultural Racial Identity Model. So now I will hand it over to Dr. Baden.
Oh, hi. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Misha, for that nice introduction. It's my honor to be here to moderate this panel. I want to note that one of the adoptees is having some technical difficulties and trying to get into this call. So at some point he may join us. That is Joe, who's in Morocco. But in the meantime, we're fortunate to have Mike Davis, Monty Haynes, and Anissa Druesedow here for us to speak about their experiences and share their stories. So I wanted to invite each of them to start with a brief overview of their story, what they think would be helpful for us to know from their adoption through their deportation to their current life. So let's go ahead and start. Mike, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Mike Davis, or Ababa Hydro Davis. I was abandoned when I was 4 years old, 4 months old, when my biological parents, my mother and father, was divorced. And when I was 8 years old, I was working at the American Community School as a tennis ball boy. And I met a American lady that was stationed here in Addis Ababa, and she had a son about my age, and me and him become really close friends. So one night she decided to give me a ride home to my grandmother's house. She sees the condition that we live, and she asked my grandmother if, she knows somebody that's coming to Ethiopia, and then he wants to adopt a child. And then they talked, and my grandmother okayed it for him, and I met my father, and he adopted me. We liked each other. I stayed with him, and I went to school. He processed my paperwork for my adoption. He filed all the right kind of paperwork for me to be adopted. He filed, since I was abandoned, he filed I-601, which is a petition to qualify me as orphan, immediate relative to American citizen. And that was it. In 1976, he got stationed back to the United States, and he brought me with him. Legally adopted in Ethiopian court, and I had a green card. All the necessary paperwork was done. I had a military independent ID card. I could go to the commissaries or military hospitals, anything. So I actually thought I was U.S. citizen. We got stationed in Fort Lee, Virginia. Went to middle school there. From there, we moved to Augusta, Georgia. My father liked the weather, and it's beautiful, beautiful place. Small town, but beautiful. And then I started living there. Went to high school there. Played tennis, soccer at school. And when I was 16 years old, I was working for Domino's Pizza, delivering pizza, and going to high school. I liked the business and everything. By the time I was 19 years old, I opened up my first pizza shop. And life was great. Met my wife. Before my wife, I had two other children from my previous friendships. And life was great. I think it's 1999. No, 1987, I met my wife. We have our first son, Solomon Davis. And then we got married. We have one second child, Adam Davis. And that was it. And bought a house, had a business. I have several different kind of businesses I owned throughout my time. But in 1999, 1990, 91 and 93, I got in trouble. I was sentenced to boot camp for 120 days, boot camp. Did that, and I was on probation for 3 years. While I was on probation, my probation officer was actually a friend I used to go to school with. She knows I was adopted. When I finished my probation, she asked me to go to Atlanta to see immigration officer. Immigration office. I went there, and they asked me what's going on, and he asked me for my green card, A number. He couldn't find it in the computer, so he told me he'll get back with me, send me back home. That was in 1995. 1997, they contacted me, and I have a court date. When I went to court, they told me I was deportable and gave me extra charge of aggravated felon. And I told the judge that I was a citizen by adoption. And he told me to go get an attorney, advised me to get an attorney, and send me back for another appointment date. I looked for an attorney, but it was very expensive. It cost about $10,000. That's what they were asking price. I went back to court, told the judge, I could not afford the attorney. He heavily advised me in getting an attorney, set a court date. for about, a month after that. So I went and got an attorney that was not immigration attorney, and he took my case, and he told my attorney to prove citizenship by applying for passport. When I applied for passport, they denied me, and when I called, the day was set for August 26, 1997. On this day, I live about 150 miles from the court. I live in Augusta, Georgia. It's about 150 miles to Atlanta. On the way to court, my car broke down, and I called the clerk at the immigration court, told her the situation, and she told me I don't have to be there. My attorney had to be there. Only my attorney had to show up. So I called my attorney's office. No one answers, and he didn't even show up to court. And I was deported now. And I didn't think about anything. I keep living my life. So in 2003, July 16, 2003, they come knocking on my door. INS, about 5 o'clock in the morning. They picked me up. And I was detained for about a year and a half before I got deported. And I fought my case, tried to reopen my case. We did everything we can. Not able to.
Thank you for sharing that, Mike. And you've been in Ethiopia since 2005, was it?
Yeah, 2000.
Okay. Well, we'll talk more in a bit about how you've been coping while you're there and how you've kind of managed. Thank you for sharing that. And you said that the charge was, I couldn't quite catch what you said the charge was that they initially charged you with.
Initially charged me with possession of cocaine. It was in a dollar bill and a joint.
Mm,
And I had
okay.
a firearm. Yeah. So it's fine.
Okay.
I did 120 days boot camp for that. And 3 years
So you,
probation.
yeah, so you paid, you did these,
I did the time.
did the sentence. Yep. Okay. And at the time when you were deported, was your father still, or your parents alive?
My dad and my father were alive, yes. And
Okay.
at my hearing for my first criminal case, there was no immigration coincidence, nothing like that was mentioned.
Right.
And the 1996 law don't apply in my case.
Yeah.
What's this called? It's called the Anti-Terrorism Act. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. We'll come back and ask some more questions about how it's going now. Let's go to Anissa. Anissa, are you there? Maybe she's not there. So Monty, let's go with you next. And hopefully Anissa will be able to join us shortly.
Okay, hello, my name is Monty Haynes. My Korean name is Hano Q. I was 4 or 5 years old when I was snatched from the streets. I was playing outside and I got kind of like lost my bearings. I don't know where my address was. So I was wandering around trying to find my home. Somebody came, picked me up. Instead of taking me to my home, they took me to the baby's home. And I was there almost a year. Then November 16th, 1978, I left Korea, went to Hawaii. From Hawaii, then I went to Iowa. When I went to Iowa to be adopted, I went to my first family. When I arrived there, I quite don't remember, but all I saw was a bunch of cornfield. And it's like little kid, I was like shocked and stuff. So when I went to my first family, it was going okay for a while, but later on, they would lock me up in a closet with no windows, no light, just feed me with bread and water every night. Um, in the morning, they unlock the door for me to go to school. Then from school, I was in elementary. From there, when I went home, it like repeats. They would put me in the closet, lock the door, um, with no lights, eating bread and water for a while. Then during the time, I used to get beat physically, mentally, sexually, um, getting whipped with a tree branch on my back, on my leg. They broke one of my toes, cigarette burns on both my feet. Then sometimes they would like chain me to a pole, like where you chain the dog to, strip me naked, during the winter time. Either have that dogs nip at me, and they would whip me with tree branch for about 30 minutes to an hour, to a point where I can't move. Then they would carry me, put me back in the closet, feed me bread and water. Next day, they dressed me, told me not to say nothing, that I fell. So I went to school. Um, I couldn't, I couldn't move. I couldn't lift my arm or my legs. Couldn't walk straight. One of the teachers touched my back, and I jumped out of my seat, and like that startled the teacher. And the teacher asked me if I was all right. Yeah, I'm fine. I just little kids told him that I'm fine. It's like I fell when I was walking to school. That when I told her that, the teacher would believe me, but she kind of stopped, looked at me, came back, and lifted up the shirt and saw the black and blue mark all over my body. After that she kept me at the school, and she told me she called a CPS up. CPS came, took the picture of my back, my front, my leg. Then they took me to their office, and I wasn't sent back to my first family. When I was there, I went to foster family. From foster family, I was there for about 6 months. Then I went to my second family. I thought to me I was going to be the same repeat over and over again, but they were a nice family. They want to adopt me, but they couldn't. They had too many kids. So I would stay there for about 5 months. Then I was sent back to foster family. I was there for about a year. From there, I went to Nebraska for my third family. Um, I thought maybe this family would want me. So after a while, my hopes weren't that up. I was like, if I'm staying here, I'm staying here. If I'm not, I'm not. So after a while, on July 15th, 1981, I went in front of the county judge, got sworn in, then was adopted. Then as soon as I adopted, then everything repeated again. my adoptive father would hit me, hit me with like those bread holder, wooden bread holder, would hit me in the back of my head, um, or either slap my head against a concrete wall to a point where I got concussion and was sent to the hospital. They did I guess they did a X-ray and CAT scan. The doctor said that I had a back case concussion and my brain was bruised. Um, they told him that I might remember some, I might remember anything at all, but it's gonna be for me to come out of it. So after a while, um, I was discharged from the hospital, went back. Um, Plus, I had an adoptive brother who was American. He was adopted. Um, my father did the same thing. Well, not same thing, but he abused him. And when he was 16, he kicked my brother out of the house. So he moved in with a bunch of one of his friends. And after that, everything went downhill. Either I get hit, whipped, physically, mentally, sexually abused by my adopted father. It's to a point that my parents got divorced. My father moved to Colorado. Um, from there, I went instead of staying with my mom. I moved to my with my dad to Colorado. I went to school there. During that time, when I was in high school, cops came by, um, got me out of the school and told me that my father was in jail for abuse charge and asked me if I have anybody to go to. Um, I said my mom, so they put me on a bus, sent me back home. Again, I went to school. As a teenager, I rebelled, skipped school. It's to a point that my mom couldn't handle it and sent me to a boarding school. So I was there. Um, I studied hard, graduated early, went to Berkeley. Instead of staying at Berkeley, I dropped out, joined the military, finished my basic NAIT, then was sent to Kuwait. Um, I served in the military for 3.5 years. I got out. Um, then did a bunch of other jobs, security job, then trucking job. After all this time, I thought I was like Dave said, I thought I was a U.S. citizen. But after when I was driving truck, I picked up the load up and was in Laredo, Texas, on our drop yard. Picked it up, was going to Michigan, and went to on the border for them to check. I showed them my manifest and everything, what I was carrying, hauling, and they asked me to open up the back of the truck trailer. And I said, "You can't. You have to call my company up." And they said, "Yeah, but we have extra steel." I said, "I know, I understand that. But you have to call my company up." By the time I got out, went back, they already broke the seal, went in, and told me that I was arrested. I was like, "For what?" It's just chandelier and marble floor things. Well, there's one. They said there's 1,750 pounds of weed in there. I was like, what? I was like, That I do not nothing know nothing about. So I argued with him, but they took me to the county jail. I was there for 6 months. ICE came and told me that I was not U.S. citizen. And I was like, yes, I am, because I was adopted. Well, you're not. And say that they never had this case before, because they didn't know what to do. So I stayed in jail. Then I went to the FCI's federal prison. From federal prison, I was there for like 4 years. From there, I went to immigration prison. From there, then I went to the Haskell Detention Center for a total of 4 years I've done. And after that, I was fighting. They told me that I need to apply for a passport. I was like, hello, I don't know the language. I don't know about nothing about Korea. It's like, well, you either have to get travel document from that country or pick another country. I was like, oh. I was like, all right. So at the time, my brother was hired an immigration lawyer. The time I went there, well, I was in Haskell. I was doing video court. The immigration lawyer told the judge saying that in 1980, back in 70, 80, once you become a U.S. adoptee, you'll make it automatically a U.S. citizen. The judge says, no, we're going by 2000 law. So he fought back and forth. Then later on, he changed to 2001 law. And I was like, oh, okay, wherever. So we fought and fought. Um, he looked at my military record. He didn't say nothing about it. To a point that what shocked me was like what he said to me and to my family, saying that this is my country. Um, he does not want me there. So after that, we stopped. I told my brother just stop fighting. I just go. So around December 2005, I was released, and I had to report into immigration every month to show that I was applying for passport. So I went to Houston to Korean consulate and asked them about traveling document and passport. They told me that my name was not even in the computer. They don't know who I am, and that they can't issue me a travel document. I was like, then why can't you tell that to immigration? They told me that they're afraid of U.S. immigration. I was like, why are you guys afraid of U.S. immigration? They're like any other immigration officer. So I was like, I went, I got a job doing construction. On August the 8th, my my mom called me and found out that my brother shot himself um, at a park. So I went to the police station, told him, "May I go see the area?" They said no. It's so gruesome that we couldn't even go in there. It's like I was like, I don't care. I want to go see where my brother died. He said that he can't. It's like after a while, I was supposed to report in. The immigration called, and I told him, just leave me alone. My brother died. I don't have time for this crap. So around October, I found out they came to my job site, full out SWAT, with M16, hand pistol pointed at me, told me to get down. So I did. They handcuffed me took me to the immigration office, and they told me that. I was like, why am I getting arrested for? Well, you threatened one of our ICE agent. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I told him that just leave, my brother passed away and I'd be left alone. He says, well, I don't know what's going on, but you threatened one of our ICE officers. I was like, oh, whatever. So they took me back to the Haskell. Then I was there for like not even a month. That was end of October of 2009. On November 4th, I got on a plane with 5 ICE agents to airport. They escorted me, and when I landed in Korea, they just left me there with $20 with me. I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? So I was like,
So Monty,
walking
I'm
around.
gonna,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. I want to make sure we don't run out of time. I feel
All
like
right, I'm sorry.
no, where I'm getting lost in your story as well, but I want to make sure we have time to cover other parts. So you've been deported and this is 2005, did you say?
2009.
2009. Okay. So now, like I said, we'll come back and talk about what's happened since you've been in Korea.
All right,
Let's
that's
go on and
fine.
have a,
I'm sorry.
no worries. Anissa, thank you for being here. So we'd love to hear a brief overview of your story as well, and then we'll discuss all of the questions that people will likely have.
Very good. My name is Anissa Druesedow. I am an adoptee, an international adoptee. I was adopted in the early 80s here in Central America, Panama. I was born in Jamaica. My biological mother is a Jamaican and a Panamanian. So I was, my grandmother went to Jamaica to pass away, and they went back to Jamaica, and that's where I was born. After my grandmother died, my biological mother brought us here to Central America, Panama. My sister and I were here in Central America. My biological mother fell in love with an American soldier since the U.S. occupied Panama for 100 years because of a treaty with the canal. And so my sister and I were being sexually abused by my uncles. So I told my grandfather, and he beat me and put my sister and I in the orphanage. We were there in the orphanage for a couple of years, 2 to 3 years maybe. And then a family came and took my sister out for a holiday, but they didn't take me out. After they took her out a couple of times, they decided that they wanted to adopt her, and then they found out that she had a sister. So then they decided they didn't want to split the sisters up. So I was adopted. My mom and dad came and picked us up at the orphanage and brought us home to Fort Clayton here in Panama. That was a U.S. Army base at the time. My father, a couple years after, we went to school on the Army base and everything like all the American kids. Then my father got orders through the Army to go back stateside. So we got packed up and we got shipped out. We landed in, I forget if it's North or South Carolina. We landed there, stayed with some family friends. My parents are from Indiana, my mom from Roanoke, and my dad from Fort Wayne. So we went there to do our R&R at their family. And then we were stationed at Seneca Army Depot in upstate New York in a town called Romulus. I was living a regular life there with my sisters and, with everybody. And I was playing soccer in gym class and I fell and my calf swelled up. After going the long way around, we found out I had cancer. I had my left leg amputated in Walter Reed because my dad was active U.S. Army at the time. I had my treatment in Fort Sam Houston and San Antonio, Texas. Then we went back up to upstate New York. I graduated high school, started living, you know, regular American life. I got married to a soldier that was in the Army. I had my daughter, Vanessa. Due to a history of domestic violence between him and I, after him pushing me down a flight of steps, I, you know, was able to get the assistance to go into a shelter to be, you know, separated from him legally. Then my life as a single mother started, always making too much to get assistance. I made many bad mistakes during all of this time. In 2003 to 2004, I took on a seasonal job at a retail store. I returned some items onto a credit card that belonged to a friend of mine. That job ended after the Christmas season. And in April of 2004, I got a knock on the door from the sheriff's. They asked me if I was Anissa Druesedow, if I worked at this store, if I knew, you know, this person. I said, yes, yes, yes. We went back and forth, going over everything. My co-defendant or the other person involved in the crime told me, you know, she got 6 months of weekend. They recommended 6 months of weekend. When I went to court, they offered me 1 to 3. My lawyer explained to me that it was a better offer than 6 months worth of weekends because I would be out on work release in a month and a half. So I pled guilty. My public defender, nobody mentioned immigration, Jamaica, adoption, nothing. I went and got processed at Bedford Hills. ICE came to see me at Bedford Hills Women's Prison in New York City. And I didn't even know what ICE was. I mean, I lived upstate New York where there are more cows than there are people, right? So I didn't know anything about any of this. When they came to see me, they started asking me what border I came through and stuff like that. I had no idea. I mean, we never sat around and talked about it. And I finally understood what they were trying to say, is that I came into the country illegally. And I was like, no, my parents are military, blah, you know, and they were like, okay, so you're deported, we'll check into it. So after you get processed at the maximum security, then they determine your level of security. I was being sent to Albion Women's Prison. That's upstate New York, close to where I'm from. And I went in front of the work release board after 2 weeks, and I got approved to go on work release. But then my paperwork said that I had an ICE hold. So I talked to my parents. We're estranged or not supportive. My mom basically told me, had I not gotten into trouble, I wouldn't be going through this, that they would look into it. I was brainstorming how I was going to avoid getting deported. I didn't know Jamaica, and you know, what I remembered of Panama was orphanage, my uncle sexually abusing me, and I didn't want to come here or bring my daughter at that time, that was around 11, 12, with me to life like this. So brainstorming in my cell with my cellie, she was like, do you have 401k? And I have 2 401ks. So I pulled out the money from my 401k and I hired a lawyer, which after I was in ICE custody died from an asthma attack. So after that, I signed and I was deported to Jamaica, a country I didn't know. I was never able to get documents from them because I was deported with a handwritten birth certificate. I cashed out my second 401k when I was in Jamaica, but since all I know to cook is American food, everything outside of the US is very expensive if it has US, you know, name or brand. When I was almost done going through my second 401k, I took my last $1,000 and I moved my daughter and myself to Central America, Panama. And this is where we have been living. Well, I have been living. About 12 years ago or 11 years ago, we sent my daughter back because we couldn't afford to keep her here in Panama. She's here with me today. She came down for my birthday on Monday. And so I'm enjoying, having her here until Friday. So this is where I'm living, working for the bill, working to get us all home, to do whatever is needed to get us home. And for me to be able to have, more time with my daughter, my siblings. My oldest sister died of cancer last year, and I had to say goodbye to her over a video call, which was extremely painful. But, I'm here in Central America trying to fight to get our citizenship bill pushed and trying to see, how to keep the community together. And, very grateful for the assistance that was given to me last year for my hysterectomy by the community. I'm very humbled by all the people that reached out, and I want to thank anybody that I haven't been able to thank on Facebook.
Thank you so much, Anissa. Just a quick question. When you were adopted, how old were you?
Okay, so my age is very fuzzy because I didn't know my birthday until I was adopted. I think I was around 8 or 9. I would say 10 at the most when I was adopted. So I was old enough to know that, I'm in an orphanage and I was adopted.
Mhm. Okay, so thank you. And I'm guessing we can't get Joe. I think he's still struggling to try and get onto our call, but so thank you for sharing those stories. They were all, I hear a lot of trauma in all of it, and we really appreciate your willingness to share this with all of us, because we know it's got to be hard to talk about, but there's something that you've experienced. So since you were deported, we all ended your stories with getting deported to the country you're in now. How have you been coping? How have you handled just finances, even just where you're living? Can you give us a little bit more background on that?
Well, I can go first, I guess. When I got to Panama, my Spanish was so, elementary level. I didn't know how to rent a car in Spanish. I didn't know how to rent a house in Spanish, or, I still have issues when people speak too fast. I have to ask them to slow down and to repeat it. I can't watch the news a lot of times because it's just very hard to try to, do simultaneous interpretation in my head for it to make any sense. So I was working at a call center as an interpreter. I don't know how I did it, but I was making $3.47 an hour. And I had, my daughter that needed to go to private school. That was $174 a month, plus her transportation, because we live in a poor area. Right now, I'm not there. My daughter has brought me to a resort. As you can see, the back is pretty nice. I live in an area that is very rough. There are dead bodies that are found. There's a lot of drugs because it's on the coast. It's a town called Veracruz in Panama, and it's very hard. I'm 51 as of yesterday, and I can't go to just any place and get a job because they don't hire people my age anymore. So I have to work from home. I, over the quarantine, learned to do acrylic nails. So I'm trying to, get that up and running, because that's something that, with my record, if I'm able to ever go back home, it's something that I can do at home and here. So I bake. I am constantly in survival mode. It's hard for me to dream of being outside of survival mode. Even here, sitting in a hammock with my daughter causes a lot of anxiety. I feel like I need to do something. I'm not being productive. How am I going to make my, my ends meet, at the end of the month when everything is due? So
Yeah.
it's very difficult. I don't have, we don't have family here that supports us. Actually, my family that I met here, they thought that I had a lot of money because I speak English. So they always, tried to ask me for money. So I'll give some time up to others so that they can answer.
Thank you, Anissa, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's been a challenge. And one thing I wanted to note is that all three of you were adopted when you were not infants. You were in middle childhood, I guess we would often call it. So you were about 8 or 9. Mike, I think you said you were about 8. And Monty, it's a little unclear, right? So around 9-ish,
Or 6.
6 or 9, one of those. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So who wants to tell us more? Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what life has been for you since you've been in Ethiopia?
Oh, been a nightmare. Just simple as that. This is third world country, very rough, very tough. And when I arrived here, my dad was alive. He was helping me out. Again, every month, he sent me cash. I survived like that. And after he passed away, 2007, I talked to some, cafes, some restaurants, see if they could add up a pizza, since I'm a pizza chef. And I did that one place for 4 years. They don't pay you that much. They just want to work you like 24 hours. And once they learn your trade, they don't want you no more. You'll hire their own family, and, train them. So they're not. They get you out of the way. And I worked a couple other places like that. But like I said, there's no benefit to it.
Mhm.
They don't pay that much to survive.
So when you were deported, and I think I read something that you wrote that you, and I know Monty had this similar story that you got there with $20 and had to make your way somehow.
Man, when well, in my inmate account, ISIS account, I had $285 and 1 cent. I told the officer, since you're gonna deport me, from Atlanta, close to Augusta, I told him, can I call my wife? Can I get a luggage? Some clothing, because I had a shower shoes on and no money. They said, yeah, don't worry about it. When we get to Atlanta, we'll cash the check for you. That never happened. And I begged them to call my wife. That never happened. When I got to the airport, I didn't have no clothes on. And they gave me somebody else's luggage that was from South America somewhere. And he's very tall guy, big shoes, but a nice cologne. And I didn't have nothing else. So one of the officers, that was a deportation officer, gave me $20. I took that $20, talked to a taxi driver so he could drive me to the American embassy. But it was Saturday morning. It was on Saturday, early in the morning. There was nobody there. The guards called the officer from one of the officers for me. I talked to him. I told him about my situation. I was adopted. I never been to Ethiopia. I don't know, no cash, no nothing on me. He said he'll talk to me Monday, and he hung up. The taxi driver was nice enough to give me a hotel. Got out a telephone so I could call my wife. She wired me some money, Western Union. And that's how I survived my first 24 hours.
Thank you. Thank you. So, and you've been there now 16 years?
16 years, yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Monty, you were about to tell that story about, you also had $20, I think, right?
Yeah. When they left me there, they went to the hotel to gamble. I just walked around Incheon Airport. It's like trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go. I bought a bus ticket. I ended up, I don't know where at the time, but after a while, I went to the subway station and got a train ticket and went to nearest area, which is Yoido. There I got out. Only thing I had on me was what I was wearing, shorts and t-shirt. Remember, this was in November and it was cold. I have no other suitcase or nothing. The money I had was already spent on bus and subway. So I was walking around, it was getting cold. So I went to the Han River area, went underneath the bridge for a while to sit there to get away from the cold wind. Um, there for about 3 weeks, I lived underneath the bridge, eating food out of the garbage can. Um, I was doing that. It's to a point that I had a real bad case of pneumonia. So I was in the hospital. I didn't have no ID, nothing, um, nothing to pay for the whole, for the hospital bill. So I was there for like almost a month. When I first got out, I was like, I don't have any money. I have no ID to show them. So I kind of left without them knowing. Um, it's to a point that I had to figure out some way to find a job because I have no ID and you need ID or phone. So I remember, so I called my mom up, collect, which is expensive. So I talked to her, told her I was there, and she told me, mentioned a lady that works in a church to contact her. So I did. I met her. She gave me some money for food. She gave me a apartment, a missionary apartment. So I was there. Then she got hold of Goal, which helped me to get my ID. I met them, went to the community center to get an ID. They didn't have me in the computer, so I had to go to the welfare office to get a stamp and stuff. So I went there. They asked me where I was there for, and I have a translator with me, and I told him my story, and it's like they never even heard of it before. So it's like when I told my story, you could hear a pin drop in the welfare office. It was that quiet. So they gave me a stamp. Then I went back. They had to manually type in my information to get an ID card. So as soon as I get my ID card, open a bank account, um, I lost over 100 pounds. And it's because because I didn't eat that well. With that, I got a cell phone and I started looking for a job. At that time, I don't know, I had no help from nobody. I was doing this on my own. Um, so I started looking for a job. I got a job teaching English a little bit. And after a while, I got a job at a restaurant, which I've mostly done in the States. So I got a job at a restaurant. They're around, just like when I first arrived, it's like they just look at me. It's like I'm a foreigner. I was like, hello, I'm Korean. I have the same blood as you. It's like, to me, it's like a ping pong. It's like first the Korean government sent me to US. Then from the US, they sent me back to Korea. And even like with the Korean people, it's like, no matter what I do, or how I act, they still like look down on me. It's like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to act for them to accept me? It's like in 2012, I did an interview with SBS, told them about my story, and they said that this is the first case they had. They didn't even, nobody knew about what was going on. And
Mhm.
till this day, if it wasn't for Goal or SRC helping me out, I would still be living on the streets and going to work.
Mhm.
I had a good job until the COVID hit. The business was losing money, so they let me go. After that, there ins and odd jobs. It's just this COVID has hit bad. And now I can't find a job. Like Anisha said, I'm too old.
How old are you now, Monty?
I'm 50. Well, actually, I do not know how old I am. So I have two birthdays. The first one is made up by Holt Adoption Agency. They just guessed. Second one, I did a DNA test. Found my birth family, and she had a paperwork saying it's only 1 year difference. So still, right now, went to two interviews yesterday. They asked for my ID, so I showed them my ID, and they said that they can't hire me. I was like, why? I have experience. You're too old. I was like, what does that have to do with working? So either way, it's like, no matter what you do, they don't accept you
Mm-hmm.
because I'm adopted.
Yeah. So,
And with the language barrier, it's like I said, it's hard to learn. It's
yes,
like,
it really is.
it's like people think that it's easy to live here in Korea. It's not, unless they're in my shoes, in all of our adoptees, deportees' shoes. Until then, they won't be able to experience it, what we're going through right now, where
Yeah.
anybody's deportees going through. And what adoptees that's getting ready to be deported, this is what they can be facing.
Absolutely. So
And they need to get ready for it.
I wanted to ask you guys a few questions. I know everyone's curious about how you've handled all of this emotionally. I wanted to know how what your legal status is in the country you're in now. So maybe we could start with whoever wants to
I'll
answer
start.
first.
I'm like I said, I'm Korean citizen, no matter what. I can't change that.
Mhm.
It's to a point that they need to accept me for who I am and not looking at it as I'm an adoptee. That's it.
Right, absolutely.
Until the government wakes up and changes it, it's going to keep on going. Unless the law passes, the Citizenship Act been in the Congress for I don't know how long. It's been in there a long time,
Yeah.
and it's not moving.
Monty, I'm going to see what the others say to the same question. And I want to just comment. I noticed that it sounds like from all three of your stories, your adoptive parents were still alive and when you went through this deportation, and it doesn't sound like they did or could do, I don't know, much to help, that you didn't get much support in trying to fight it from them. So that's just something, and because you were all adopted at an older age, of course, we wonder what And none of you seem to have known that you weren't US citizens until these things happened. So to keep going with the question about legal status and emotional coping, Anissa, how's it going for you?
My legal status in this country, my document says that I'm a Panamanian born abroad. And I sound like an American, so I get treated as an American. If I want to go into a taxi and they hear my accent, they want to charge me more. For example, there was COVID bags that were given out during the pandemic, but they didn't come to my house and give me any bags because they think I'm a rich American. Because in these countries, if you speak English, the US government magically sends you a bag of money, which I haven't received my bag yet. But people around us think that. So we are quote unquote home, but we aren't accepted in countries completely. We're just Americans in this country because whatever reason they imagine. Here, a lot of people come to retire and to think that they're going to live cheaper, but food and everything is extremely expensive. That's my status here. My legal status is that I am a Panamanian born abroad. So I have documents here in Panama. Emotionally, it's a complete mind screw all the time. Like I stated, my sister passed away from cancer last year, and I got to say goodbye to her over a video call. My daughter, I hadn't seen her over 3 years, and she came in Sunday night. It's a trip that we can't afford, but I was having some issue. I'm having a lot of issues, and she found it important to come down for my birthday. And to be with me. So I don't know what she did, how she did it, but she's here until Friday. She has to go back. I was getting therapy that I'm no longer getting. I was offered some more therapy from, I don't know if I can say her name, but community member that is a psychiatrist or a therapist, I don't know, but we have our first session for the 22nd. I don't think of suicide as much anymore because my last therapist has taught me some mechanisms to deal with those thoughts. But the plan it still goes around and round in my head. I'm scared that in 2 years I'll need to get another prosthetic leg. I don't have medical coverage in this country. I'm scared that something might happen to me when I'm still here in Panama and I'll have nobody here. I'm scared that something will happen to my siblings. I've already lost one. So sometimes I don't want to be the burden for my daughter to have to come and see here in Panama. And it's something I struggle with on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
I struggle with being attacked by community members that have a history of domestic violence. It's like you have a history of domestic violence and you're still attacking me as a domestic violence survivor, as a sexual abuse survivor.
When you,
And
Anissa, can I ask you to clarify there? When you say community members, do you mean adoptee community members or in Panama, community members there?
no, adoptee community members, members of our community. They
So
think that it's
sorry.
cool to put
I mean,
up
these stories,
our
your stories, I
wraps.
know they're real. And
They think it's cute to put up our rap sheets. They think it's cute to point out our crimes. And it's fine. I go and I share my story to get, support. I literally undress and portray the worst time of my life for the whole world to see. And when abusers come after you on public platforms and they're allowed to by our community instead of us sticking together, the town I live in is extremely small and there's 37 gangs in this town. And I just think that's like our adoption community. It's extremely small, but it's so divided. And we can't allow people to go after just because I have a record, because I got caught, because I'm the one without the citizenship. We all have to stick together on this or else nothing is going to happen. And I don't feel secure. I
Yeah.
don't look forward to sharing my story anymore. I don't feel like I can come to my community and be me. I feel like now I have to put on a show for my community also, along with my community, along with my family, to be who they want me to be. And that's hard if I can't be myself with my community. I always thought that we understood each other without even speaking.
I'm really sorry about all of this, Anissa. I mean, it's so painful to hear. I can hear it in your voice, and to feel that you're not sure where a safe space is. But yet you need the support that many community members are offering. It's hard to know where to turn sometimes. But we really appreciate your being vulnerable and sharing all of this with us. And I'm so sorry that this has happened. We really hope that these kinds of events will help maybe hit someone who will hear this, maybe a lawyer or a government official can hear this and maybe try and support the bill to get citizenship back for all of you.
They all say they want to help, but they all leave.
I know. There's a few questions that we've received that I wanted to make sure I asked. Mike, one of the questions was about your wife and whether she's a US citizen and whether or how that might affect you.
Yes, she's U.S. citizen. We all applied for I-130, which was approved, but the embassy kept denying me the visa. And right now it's pending. We'll see. They denied me, we appealed it. My other son hired an attorney, and now it's going back to the State Department. What's gonna happen, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, so frustrating. So there's all of these ties that you should have to the US, and the government's making it impossible.
Very impossible.
Yeah.
I want to tell you a little bit about my wife. My wife and my kids, when I got deported, they was 8 and 12 years old. They got me to move with me, live with me. We had lost our business, we lost our house. Beautiful house, beautiful location. My kids was doing really good in school. After my deportation, their grades went down, and my wife, she couldn't take it. It was very difficult for them to survive there. So she tried here. So she sold the house. Actually, she gave the house up. And they tried to stay, try to live here with me. It was very impossible for them. Different culture, different language, everything is different. And they went back. But still, they're struggling now. She's struggling right now. It should never have to happen.
It shouldn't.
No adoptee should be deported. No adoptee should be deported.
I agree. Adoptees have already gone through early traumas. Why continue this trauma that's unnecessary? Thank you, Mike. There's a question for Monty about whether you have any connection with your birth family or your biological family now.
Nope, I don't. I lost contact with my adopted mom soon, like 4 or 5 years ago. And my birth family, when I first met them, they asked Holt, am I here for financial help? And I was like, no, I just want to meet them. So about, I think what, a month later, I finally met them, or I think end of November, I finally met them. Found out that Holt never told them that I was adopted.
Hmm.
She thought I was just lost somewhere in Seoul, Korea. So I met them, and with that language barrier, I just lost contact because people don't understand. Some family in Korea don't want to think about what happened back in those days. Some do. Some birth families do want to search for their kids, and some don't want to meet their kids because they don't want to be brought back into those hard time.
Mhm.
And yeah, I met my birth family, and it's like it's like been 31 years of my life in the United States. Defended it, put my life on the line. It's like this, it's like stab in the back.
It is. I
And it's like
100% agree.
Anissa said, as an adopted community, we need to stick together no matter what and fight this and pass the adoption, the citizenship law. But it's not helping like that. It's just like, it's just separated because of the person.
Right. Yes, and that's one thing we want to talk about as well. So I also, well, so relatedly, what's it been like for you to meet other adoptees who are in your same circumstance, other deported adoptees?
Well,
And
before I was deported, there were at least 5 or 6 adoptees that were sent back to Korea when I was in high school. I don't know where they're at, because I know there's twin that was sent back that they had to join them, join the military. That's mandate. If you're under a certain age, it's mandate for them to join the military. So they joined the military. I lost contact with them. I lost contact with some of them because I don't know where they're at or how they're doing.
so you knew some while you were in Korea. What about
No,
Anissa and
in
Mike?
Haskell.
Oh, in Haskell. Okay.
I don't know no
Mike and
one.
Anissa, did you?
I have not met no one that was deported, adopted or non-adopted. Not that many of them. Plus, nobody don't want to talk about deportation. I mean, this is a bad word. You tell somebody you're deported, they think of you like, forget it. Just
Yeah,
bad criminal or something wrong with you.
a real stigma.
Yeah. And
I-
you live 30 years in America, and they look at you, they ask you, how long you lived in America? 30 years. They want you to be very rich, have
Mhm.
cars, big old buildings, house, stuff like that.
The
So,
I-
the few words we don't speak about.
I think that I don't think that we're understanding the question, but I'll answer the question. In 2006, when I was deported to Jamaica, in December of 2006, I moved to Panama. And I thought that this had only happened to me. The internet wasn't so accessible. So I found Bastard Nation, which is a domestic group that I hung on to their coattails for a while. They welcomed me with open arms, said this was messed up. I helped with some of their emails for their original birth certificate petitions and everything like that. And I felt great because I felt like they were saying what things went through my mind. And then all of a sudden, they put me on to another group of adoptees that I was with for a while. Then along on my Facebook screen popped up Christopher Larson. And I was like, I need to meet him because prior organizations didn't want me to speak because of my criminal history, because I was a bad adoptee. And I just kept searching. I found Ernesto here in Panama. I reached out to him. He thought I was the CIA. He didn't trust me, something that a lot of us that have been incarcerated and adoptees in general don't trust very easily, right? Then after that, I found Mike. And then after that, shortly after that, we found, Mauricio, other members. We have a group chat on Facebook that we support each other, especially at holiday times. The pain is so equal. It doesn't matter if you're in Panama, in Morocco, or in Ethiopia, or in Costa Rica. It is a gushing wound. And we, try to put group calls together. We talk about each other's story, how we miss home, how we can't sleep because we're thinking about what's going on back home. A lot of painful things, but it's good because all of us are feeling the same thing and we can be there for each other. The community has become a lot more vocal lately, and I'm very grateful for, Monty, Mike, and Joe that is having difficulty on here. He's in Morocco. But I love my brothers. We're not perfect. We're flawed. We're not going to be perfect now or in the future. But, we're always there for each other, even if it's just a joke or somebody is feeling stressed or whatever, we reach out to each other. We're all on WhatsApp. We are, trying to hold each other up, trying to get rid of the unworthy feeling.
Thank you so much, Anissa. Joe, I think I'm not sure if your sound is working. I see your name up there. Are you able?
It's work. I mean, I'm looking at y'all and everything, but I can't get my face on. Can't let y'all look at me.
That's okay. We've been having a nice long chat, so I wanted to invite you to share what I know that you were only recently deported, I guess, a year ago. Was that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I was deported last year. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. What do you want to share with us?
Well, I got in on the tail end of all this right now, and man, I really don't know what to say. It's, you would think there would be some compassion somewhere. Somebody that's been adopted, brought into the country, raised up the American way, and all of a sudden they just say, "Hey, we putting you on an airplane. You got to go." That's real. That's real difficult right there to swallow. It really is.
Joe, how old were you when you were adopted?
When I was adopted, I was I was brought into the country when I was 4 years old. I was adopted when I was like 7, 8 years old, legally adopted.
Okay.
Name changed and everything.
Yeah. So when you were brought into the country, you were brought in to live in, someone brought you in not for adoption?
Well, tell you a story. My dad was in the service. He was in the Navy. He was stationed in Rota, Spain. He met my adopted mom, which is really my aunt, and they brought me back in, like I say, in 1972. The military and everything else like that. And then they did the paperwork and all that stuff. Got a lawyer, and adopted me, and and that's when I was a young age. I really don't know too much about it, but
So
that's how it happened.
thank you. I mean, there's a real theme here. I mean, at least three of you out of the four had your parents involved in the military.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes, ma'am.
they
Well,
were service
my
people.
actually, my dad
you,
was in the military during Vietnam.
and so one of the questions I think that we would all love to hear a little bit about is why do you think they didn't know to get you citizenship? Did they not know? Did they know
Well,
and not do it?
all I know is when I was about 15, I think I was about 15 years old or something like that. My mom and dad was separated. My mom's in Virginia, and my dad, he came back home to Texas, and I followed him to Texas and everything. They did all the proper paperwork into getting me, naturalized and everything else. They filed N-600. Now, I don't know what that is exactly and everything else like that. But like I say, I was 15 years old. My mom, she tells me that I need to go to Dallas and get sworn in or something like that. And like I say, it was a bad time because I didn't have no way to Dallas because I live about 3 or 4 hours away from Dallas, and I couldn't get to Dallas, and I just never thought it was important, to tell you the truth. I felt like American citizen. I mean, if you was to tell me back then I wasn't an American citizen, I would call you. I would think you was crazy. And I just felt like American citizen. I feel like, man, what am I supposed to do? I mean,
So the step that was missing in your case, Joe, was just that swearing in. Otherwise, you would have been an American citizen technically too.
Yeah,
well,
the N600 is the form for naturalization.
okay. See, I wasn't even aware of all that.
So
Like I said,
once your dad filled that out, send it in to Dallas. That is paper makes once you're sworn in, that will make you automatically into a U.S. citizen. Since
right.
that you didn't do,
I see.
Yeah, it got
oh,
denied.
Thank you.
It got denied for some reason. Later on, as I got older, just like a couple of years ago, I found out it got denied. But I don't know why it was denied or whatever. It's probably. I mean, kids don't think about stuff like that. I mean, they raised up the American way and everything, and they don't think about
Right.
stuff like that. And I didn't think about nothing like that. I've never felt like a foreigner anyway. So
Well, by
Hey.
rights, the child shouldn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
The act should cover you whether you go and make it to the court or not.
Right.
So because of your adoption. I do want to talk about some of the divisiveness in the community, but I've been told that there's another deportee in the session. I'm not sure, Sosan or Sosan.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes,
Sosan?
Sosan. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hi. I just thought I'd join in. I didn't even know you guys were having the Zoom. Someone let me know. So, hi.
And where are you calling from?
South Korea.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a deportee. I came here 2018, September.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Korea till I was about 11. And my situation is a little different because I am not an adoptee as far as like adopted from an orphanage or, gone through any of the adoption agencies. My mom, who had left when I was little, had came back to get me when she was remarried to an American. So that's when they took me to the States. And of course, my stepfather, he was in the Air Force at the time. He's retired now, so he's military. Of course, I entered the States with the green card, But before I could either renew it or to get my citizenship, I ended up going to prison. So by the time I discharged from prison, it was already expired. And what happened with me, I wasn't directly deported from prison like most like illegals do. They usually find out while they're in the system, but somehow I fell through the cracks. Maybe it was my last name. I'm not sure. They didn't know about my legal status as far as my, not having a citizenship or whatever. So I actually got out, and anyway, I don't want to like just get into this whole.
Sure. No, we
But,
appreciate your time. Yeah.
right, and I just joined because I know I've been kind of staying in the shadows
Mhm.
because of my situation, and I definitely was one of those adoptees where I was reaching out when I did find out that I was going to be deported to different organizations, and while I was in the States still before I came here, and they were willing to help until they found out, like, my crime, because I do have a violent crime. I did 13 years for 2 counts of shooting with intent to kill. I'm not ashamed about what I've gone through, because there's a lot of details and stories that I know I've been forgiven, and I'm a changed person, but at the same time, I think a lot of people who hasn't been in trouble and does not have a criminal record, easy to point fingers and say, oh no, she's a criminal or he's a criminal, why would we want to help them, and separate and to categorize when all our pain and all our experiences are the same. So I ran into that. Like, there's several people who wanted to interview me. There were some reporters that wanted to know my story, but then as soon as they were informed that I've done time for violent crime, it was like, ooh, no, we don't want to touch that part. We don't want to touch the violent crimes.
Yes,
I
thank you.
always say it doesn't matter if yeah, it's horrible, and like if somebody, a rapist or a child molester, or like just whatever, it's bad. Yes, those crimes are horrible, but at the same time, the shared experience of being adopted, growing up in the States, thinking that, oh, this is your home, you belong here, your family's here, and then you get deported after you've done your time. Why punish people for the rest of their lives, right?
It's a really important question.
Have done their time.
So I want to get, son, I invite you to join us in this discussion too, but I want to get to the discussion of the divisiveness that some of you were alluding to. And I did get a question about the film Blue Bayou, which I know has been at the heart of some of this. So
Right.
that
The
question,
Blue Bayou.
so it's been
Here's what's
controversial. Yeah.
It's not.
Just to give background,
controversial.
let me just give a background really briefly. So for folks who don't know about the controversy, Blue Bayou is a story of a Korean adoptee who was deported under somewhat similar circumstances as many of the folks we're talking to, but there was a lot of conflict about whose story it was. Go ahead, Monty. Monty?
Okay, is there a question to ask me about the divisiveness?
Well, I'm asking all of you about the divisiveness and about Blue Bayou. Monty, are you there? He looks frozen. So, Mike, Anissa, Joe, Sosan, go ahead, Mike.
I have not seen the movie. I just read about it. So really, I can't say that much about it.
Okay.
But I think
Thanks.
you should make a comment about citizenship, getting our citizenship right, getting our citizenship passed. Should be mentioned, some legal ways for us to get our citizenship back.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to say about it?
Yeah, I'm very hesitant when it comes to this because I know this person personally, and I know a lot of people that are tuned in or in the adopt community knows that. So it's hard for me to really be public because I don't want my emotions or the past trauma to get caught up in this. When I was approached about the film, I had no idea. I had zero idea what I was walking into. I'm living my life. I have a family here now. I have a little baby that I'm chasing after. I'm busy. I'm not keeping up with anybody, you know? So when I was approached, yeah, I am all about speaking about my story, you know, but of course I have to be mindful of, you know, my family back in the States, my dad, you know, my mom being the old time, you know, conservative, you know, stuck in her ways Korean lady, you know, like I have to, you know, who cares about her reputation and what her friends think, all that, right? I have that on my back, and it's a demon that I fought ever since I went to prison about my story or being public about who I am or what I've gone through. So when I was approached about it, yeah, I'll do a story. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't know all this controversy and craziness was gonna pop out of it, you know, but hey, I've done the story. I got caught up in it. That's fine. Did I watch the movie? Yes, I watched the movie. Do I think it's similar to his story? Kinda, but guess what? There are so many details that is nothing like who he is, who he was. You know what I mean? I get it. I get his argument. I get what he's upset about. But at the same time, because I know this person, it's like I don't respect it. Does that
Right,
make
right.
sense?
It does,
I don't
Susan. I want to give
It
Monty a
really,
chance.
I don't care
Susan,
what's going on.
thank you,
Sorry.
Susan. I want to give Monty a chance to respond because he was about to when he got kicked off the Zoom. Go ahead, Monty.
Well, when this Blue Bayou started, John Chonan contacted me through email and asked me about my story, and I told him. He asked me if he wants to use my picture and my name. I said, go ahead, because this is the first time someone made a movie about deported adoptees, and I was all for it. Then all of a sudden, they start doing boycott. And I was like, it's like, what are they boycotting this for? It's about everybody. And it's to a point that I don't even care no more. And I will say his name. His name's Adam. What he told everybody about me, he told people that I'm drug addict.
Well, I don't want to get into debating
He just
because he's not here to defend himself, but I understand the frustration when people are saying things that aren't
he's the
true.
one that divided the adopted community apart. Instead of bringing it together, he's dividing it up.
I hear what you're saying, and one of the things that I want to, and I think it's terrible that this has come to this point. What I'd like to say is that I would ask, from my perspective, that adoptees support all of you, that it doesn't have to be a contest about whose story is going to win in this situation.
Exactly. It's not. This is
'Cause,
about everybody, all the deportees and the adoptees that's in lure are being deported. This is what they can be looking forward to.
Hey,
And
can I say something?
adoptee,
Yes,
Go
please go
ahead.
ahead, Joe.
You know, it ain't about the movie. I mean, the movie is not what we are trying to do here.
Right.
What we're trying to do here is a total different thing. We're trying to make it where we could be legal because we got adopted. We got brought into this country. That's what it's all about. It ain't about a movie. It ain't about something. It ain't about a crime. It ain't about none of this. It's about the right thing, common sense thing. I mean, if you take a dog off the street that's hungry and everything, and you give it a home, well, guess what? That's your dog. And that's the way that we ought to be treated. We was brought into the country. We didn't have a choice. We didn't say, hey man, bring us to America. We didn't want, I mean, all we're
Right.
trying to say is have a little compassion, do the right thing, pass this law. And that's mainly it. That's mainly it.
I absolutely agree. And so one of the things that since we see that there's this very strong theme of military families adopting all of you, but yet either not getting the education about what they should be doing in terms of getting you citizenship, maybe the agencies, whether agencies were involved, if they were private adoptions. I did get a question about that, if you guys could name the agencies that were responsible and whether they've helped at all with combating any of the deportation, et cetera.
I wasn't adopted through an agency. I was adopted through a lawyer, just a lawyer here in Panama. And my biological family and my adopted family, they came up with the whole agreement. My parents, according to somebody that read my FOIA that understood that language, my paperwork was turned in on time. It just took the government 6 years to answer the paperwork. And I don't know if I can credit that to when I came down with cancer and we had to move around so much, as to maybe the break in the communication there with, immigration and my family. I don't know. But I think that especially because this was something that my adoption was something that the US government aided in and allowed me to travel. That should be hands down, let's pass this bill. I do want to touch on the Blue Bayou film. I spoke to Justin before. I spoke to him during, and I thought this was a wonderful thing. I was a member on the Board of Adoptees for Justice. We all read the script and voted on it to support the movie. Christopher Larson at that time was the executive director. He was supposed to go to the opening, but because of COVID, everything got shut down as it was planned before, right? So the thing is that I go in and I share my story, not for me, not for people to say, oh, look at me, that I'm this great criminal. No, I share my story for my community. And I feel that that is my story. I was adopted. I broke the law. Of course, I don't know how to ride a motorcycle. And my crime wasn't against motorcycle, but it was theft. So it's the same thing, right? I got arrested. I got, in the government's radar. And just like the character, I was deported. The same thing. Mike, he, broke the law. He went to the Louisiana holding facility. So, I mean, there's part of Mike's story. That movie, I would love to be so arrogant as to think that it was about me, but this isn't about me. This is about a platform that nobody in our community has the ability to do. This is a platform that we can use as a community to bring light to this. I go into one senator's office with 2 staff members. I bare my soul. I tell them I'm a thief, I'm a liar. And they said they might talk to their boss, right? This is a platform that cuts out the middleman and goes right to the source of it, right?
Thank
So
you.
this
Thank you.
isn't about one person, it's about our whole community. Sorry, Amanda.
No, that's okay, because I was told we only have now 3 minutes to wrap up. So I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds to say your final words, parting words, so that we can kind of wrap up and thank you for your being willing to share with us. So 30 seconds.
I'm going to jump on my first 30 seconds. I want to thank Christopher Larson that's out there for putting up with all the bullshit that he has put up with this time. I want to thank the community that has stood behind us, although they have gotten a shitload of pushback. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you.
And I also want to thank
Go ahead, Monty.
people that helped me out in the past.
Yeah.
As an adopted community, we need to stop our differences and come together and pass this law.
Yeah.
Thank you,
That's
Monty.
it.
I think
And I'll go next.
some of us, like I know that, I'm doing okay here. It was rough in the beginning, but I'm okay. But there are ones that are not okay. They are having financial issues and their living conditions horrible. And I think when you're living good, you forget, those tough times and hard times and what it means to be home and being dropped off in the middle of nowhere where you don't know. And that's who I feel for. It's tough for me too, because I'm separated from my family and my daughter, and, I don't know my future as far as with my family now. They're Americans. I have a lifetime ban. It's not like I can go back in 5 years or 10 years, so, I have depressive thoughts. I have suicidal thoughts. I go through all these things too. It doesn't matter if I have a good life and I got it all, it doesn't matter because I don't have it all, so I feel for those more than me, definitely. So I just want to go ahead and put that out there.
Thank you, Sosan. It sounds like you've kind of landed on your feet since in the beginning, after the
Oh,
deportation.
okay.
Thank you. Mike.
Yes. I just want to say all of us, we need to work together as this citizenship bill passed. Citizenship bill have to pass. People are suffering. This is a nightmare. No one should be deported. Any adoptee should not be deported. Doesn't matter if he was adopted in 1901 or 2000. It shouldn't be. So, but let's work together. And thank you, everybody. This is great. We have to work
Thank you.
together.
Thank you, Mike. And Joe, you get your 30 seconds as well.
Well, I ain't much for words, but I just want to show my appreciation to y'all, to Mike, and to Christopher Larson and Anissa and everything. Hey, without y'all, I don't know where I'd be at right now, but there's hope, and y'all are giving me hope and everything else like that. And I really appreciate it. I appreciate everything that y'all are doing. I appreciate everything from everybody. I really do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
also, I just want to say thanks to Christopher for his help.
Yes,
Because
thank all of you.
if it wasn't for him, that was the time when I was going through a bad time. I had no therapy, nothing. And my PTSD was kicking in from the military. I was going downhill. But thanks to Christopher Larson, he helped me out and stuff. So, and Goal and NCRC
Yeah.
and everybody
Thanks to the
that's in the
community.
United States who helped me. Thank you for what you have done.
Thank you. And you
Okay.
notice in the chat that Adoptees United is doing a GoFundMe to support the deported adoptees, and we want to support you. We thank you for your generous sharing with us, and we hope that we will get to talk to you again, and hopefully the next time we speak, there will be some change in legislation.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all
Amen.
again.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
That's
you
good.
again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Um,
you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Baden. And thank you to Anissa and to Joe and to Mike and to Monty and to Sosan for being so, for being so vulnerable. And I think that this was a really, really big learning experience for so many people that are here today, because I think this is an issue that most people are not aware of, and even if they are aware of, they probably are not aware of the extent of the suffering. And so I just really want to thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your stories. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one that is outraged by the cruelty that you were shown by the American system and just the situation that you've been in. I do want to say that before this event, the four adoptees, Joe, Mike, Anissa, and Monty, were generous enough to give us their time to do a recorded interview that was done by Joy Lieberthal Rowe, who I believe is on this is here on Zoom, and she is a leader within our community, and she's also the co-founder of another organization called I Am Adoptee, and she just did a wonderful job bringing out the nuances and complexities of the story. So we will be releasing those recorded interviews in the coming days, coming weeks. Please stay motivated, please stay engaged, please stay interested. I think my colleagues have dropped a bunch of links in the chat here where you can learn more about citizenship. You can read more stories about this. You can learn about what you can do, whether that's donating, learning more about, you know, the laws that are the Adoptee Citizenship Act of 2021 that we're trying to get passed. So please stay engaged and share these stories with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and keep an eye out for the interviews that we're going to be releasing in the coming days and weeks. So with that, I want to say another huge thank you to Dr. Baden, to Mike, to Anissa, to Monty, to Sosan, and to Joe, and for everyone for taking the time to learn about this and joining us tonight. So thank you so much, and I wish everyone a really good night.